All right, YouTube. North Carolina is still trying to stand its ground, funny use of the term, on the transgendered bathroom stuff. Thankfully, I will say this. Years ago, when gay marriage was an issue, reminiscent of this transgendered bathroom stuff, and that's part of a larger problem, which is transgendered rights in general. It goes beyond just, oh, we're worried over who might use the bathroom. That's sort of a cop out. When the gay marriage issue was at its peak, it was something where both parties essentially said, that is, both mainstream parties, not the Libertarian Party, remember. The Democrats and the Republicans I speak of said, we believe in traditional marriage. The Democrats said, oh, but civil unions, that'll give them equal protection. Oh, it's just fine. Gay rights are a little spooky for us. Then over time, some Republicans got on board with civil unions. They said, oh, just don't call it marriage. The Democrats switched and said, okay, gay marriage is fine. And now, of course, gay marriage is the law of the land. The 13th Amendment that protects that also protects aspects of the Second Amendment. So I wouldn't be too worried about that Supreme Court decision. To those of you who are more on the right, that is being used actively by pro-gun groups to construe the Second Amendment as specifically protecting all classes of firearms. So you should count your lucky stars, actually, that the 13th Amendment is capable of being interpreted, because otherwise you wouldn't have McDonald versus Chicago, and our crime rate would still be a lot higher. And you'd probably be banned from owning assault weapons. And you'd probably have a lot more militants in this country and a lot more drive-by shootings. But thankfully, the current Republican nominee, who is Donald Trump, he is the nominee of the Republican Party, is ambivalent on this issue. You've got a leader of the Republican Party who realizes it's going to become a dead issue, obviously doesn't want to touch it because it will. He'll probably win the election 4 or 8 years from now. The transgendered stuff will look a lot like gay marriage not that long ago. That is, it'll become a dead issue with a ever decreasing minority of people within one political affiliation really giving a fuck about the issue. You've got businesses boycotting North Carolina. You've got their university system saying, we're going to conform to equal protection. We're not gonna follow through with what our state necessarily wants us to do because we're convinced that it's a terrible idea. They don't want to lose funding. I would point out this, like with gay marriage, if you have a private establishment, you say no gays allowed, it's unenforceable, but if you put up a sign that says no gays allowed, I don't personally see that you should be sued for that. It's your own private establishment. Likewise, with the transgendered issue, we're talking about public spaces. We're talking about government facilities, whether it's federal or state, courts, schools, things like that. They're publicly funded. If you have the government and bureaus within any of their various forms, any permutation of government or government co-opted business that receives public funding at all, cannot possibly construe the law as allowing them to discriminate against anyone. It would be like if you, as an individual, in the privacy of your own home, want to say, boy, I sure do hate gays. I don't think you should lose your job over that, including if you put it in public on social media. That's your freedom of speech at work. But if you are a judge, a police officer, a school teacher, a politician, somebody like that, somebody who is empowered and perhaps paid for by public money, then you are held up to a different standard. The same is true of the transgendered law. The main reason why gay marriage became the law of the land was not because of any onus on the part of the government to recognize it, so much as the fact that the laws passed against it were clearly discriminatory. You can't have an enforceable law against such a thing. For instance, what if a gay couple signs a contract anyway? What if a justice of the peace in a state where it had been banned had issued one anyway? The government is clearly discriminating on a legal basis against individuals without proper cause. The same would be true of transgendered individuals. Now, I've said quite some time ago, yes, there is the concern of somebody who is not transgendered simply presenting themselves as though they are for perverted purposes, but there's really nothing to prevent them from doing that now, let's face it, because you don't have a law that says, strictly speaking, If I go into a Walmart and I go into the woman's bathroom, someone might shriek, I may get kicked out by security, but have I specifically broken a law? Well, there you go. I may have violated the rules of the establishment, but there's no specific law against it unless I go in there specifically with a perverted intent and somebody cares to prove that. And in court, I can always argue, oh, I really had to pee, or, I consider myself a woman deep inside, and there's nothing that the legal system ultimately is going to be able to do about that. Unless they want to argue that a bathroom is specifically a sexual location, which I hope for most people is not the case, as in it's like some sort of lesbian party and you're walking in on it, or some gay party in the men's room. I would prefer to think that's not the case. There are already unisex facilities in the country. There's no real reason to have a law against transgendered people using the bathroom that they choose. The idea that you should force establishments to make all bathrooms unisex, I think that could be a little bit costly. I mean, not necessarily. Depending on how they're set up, you could literally just slap a sign that says unisex on the door of the bathroom and leave the facilities as are, and it wouldn't be a problem. I don't think that there's any specific reason. It's like the concept of gender segregated schoolrooms back in the old days, having girls and boys in different classes. Did it actually serve any real purpose? I answer fundamentally no. It didn't really serve a purpose. It's not separate but equal. At the time, it certainly wasn't separate but equal. Of course, the girls were learning how to cook and the basics of like reading and the classics. The boys were all learning like science and math and stuff. This is like 100 years ago. Kind of screwy, kind of nonsensical when you think about it. And I look forward to the time when I can look back on this issue. I understand that the majority of the population right now is against the concept of transgender rights as far as bathroom usage goes. I understand that. But I look back a decade ago and I say the average person in the population was also against gay marriage. I was for it at the time. I had no problem with it. I was in the minority at the time. Laws caught up, culture caught up, people's understanding of morality caught up, and ultimately I am now in the majority. But I'm no Johnny-come-lately to the concept. I supported it before it became the official platform of the Democratic Party back in the late 1990s. I had no Hillary Clinton running as a senator, mid-2000s. Oh, I think man and woman is marriage. Civil unions, that's okay. Barack Obama was the same when he was running for the Senate. Not that long ago, only a decade ago, politicians felt that they couldn't take it up as an issue because they were too big of cowards to understand what the Constitution actually defines. They were too cowardly to support the Constitution using a rational argument because they were afraid of being dragged down by their moralist donors and by the voters who were moralists as well. The fundamental concept of a democratic republic as a place where representatives are incapable of supporting the Constitution because an aspect of it is not quite yet popular with 51% of the population, to me is cowardice. The Libertarian Party supported gay marriage in the 1970s. And if I had been alive then, I wouldn't have fucking cared either. Because I don't care who gets married. I don't care who uses the bathroom. So I would like to put it out there officially. I don't care if transgendered people use whichever bathroom they want to choose. I see no reason to have laws against it. I think the university that's refusing to implement this nonsense from North Carolina is correct. I'm not surprised that it's the Deep South once again holding out. Although I will say this, in defense of the Deep South, they did get on board with equal protection under the law quicker than the Ted Cruz region of the country. The Ted Cruz region of the country really dragged its heels a lot more. Utah, I thought that they were going to start like crying and praying on live TV because of what was going on with gay marriage there at the time. So I will say this. I am in support of transgendered rights. It's not a PC issue. I don't see it as a mental illness. I don't see it as a form of degeneracy or a cultural problem, because there is no problem. Doesn't affect me, don't care. I don't care who walks in the bathroom when I'm busy taking a leak. It just doesn't matter to me. As far as morality is concerned, please find me the verse in the Bible that speaks about transgendered individuals, because one of the big things propping up gay marriage towards the end, with the diehard anti-gay marriage crowd, was, well, the Bible, Jesus says. Well, the Bible, Jesus says doesn't work. The Bible doesn't say anything about this issue. This is a fairly modern phenomena that we're talking about as far as actually taking hormone replacement therapy, actually getting this kind of surgery. That's relatively modern. You know, you might have mention of somebody who cross-dressed in the Bible. That's a little bit different. And anyway, that didn't work in court. And I'll say this, in the future, if the issue is pressed by people who are moralists, who want to hide behind the Bible and pretend it even mentions the fucking issue, it will go to the Supreme Court. It will be decided against those that are against transgendered rights, just like gay marriage was. It will be the exact same arguments used. I don't understand why this is becoming a political issue yet all over again. Get the fuck over it. The era of authoritarianism is coming to an end. The PC cultural Marxist crowd is losing when it comes to guns and censorship and all the important issues they need to lose on. The Evangelocon Zionist retards on the right are losing when it comes to the culture war on issues like, yeah, it's okay to be gay. Nobody fucking cares because you're still a citizen. You're transgendered? Who gives a fuck? I don't care if they're polygamous either. That'll probably become the next issue. Doesn't matter to me. It doesn't affect me one way or the other. Does the fact that they're transgendered mean they're not paying their fair share? They're not doing their share of work? They're not potentially, you know, what happens if it's a Harvard PhD in nuclear physics that's like responsible for the operation of a nuke plant? Am I going to tell them, well, you need to take an extra 5 minutes to go down the hall to use a different bathroom, meanwhile ignore the nuclear plant so it blows up? I don't think so. I just don't care. I don't understand why anybody else ultimately would care either. I guess they find it weird. Well, you know, I find it weird that people worship a dead carpenter, but I don't say that you shouldn't be able to do that. And I think many feel the same way. So North Carolina, it's nonsense. Just give up the fucking issue. Who gives a fuck? That's about all. Peace out.